For All the Dogs is Drake's 8th studio album, and the album is filled with a ton of different vibes, ranging from gospel samples all the way to hard-hitting trap bangers, and it sounds amazing. So today we're going to be breaking down some of the techniques behind the hardest hitting tracks on For All the Dogs and figure out what makes these beats so amazing. We're going to be making 3 different beats in this video, so get ready to soak up those gems. Later on, we're going to get into tracks like 8 AM and Charlotte, Tried Our Best, and some of the other more slow R&B tracks on the album. But to start off, let's dive into one of my favorite tracks on the album, First Person Shooter featuring J. Cole. The track starts out with a soul sample based beat, but it ends up switching up into this crazy dark trap beat.
Automatic when aiming with the boy in the status. I'm about to click out on this shit, I'm about to click. Whoa.
The first thing that sticks out to me here is the dark, eerie violin melody. So to do something similar, I went into the Mellotron VST and grabbed these stereo strings. But in First Person Shooter, it also sounds like there's kind of a subtle choir mixed in with the violins. So I grabbed this Blue Monday choir from the Mellotron VST as well and laid this down. Once I had that, I wanted to add a more ear-grabbing kind of vocal, so I went into the Spaghetti Western Contact Bank and grabbed an opera singer. Now this sounds nice, but it's not hitting like the sample in First Person Shooter is yet. To do that, I grabbed Sound Shifter from Waves to mess with the pitch, and then the real sauce is I dropped this plugin called H910 Harmonizer, which also messes with the pitch, but it really kind of mutilates and messes up the audio. Shout out Mario Luciano for putting me onto that one. Once I added those effects, I reversed the whole sample, and here's the before and after. Now we could stop here, but if you listen to Daylight, you can hear that there's a subtle low bass piano note that really just fills out the sample and gives it more energy and more of an evil, gritty vibe.
Hey, she went to jungle, she bought a body. I wasn't there when they caught her body. TPS think that I bought a body.
So to finish off this sample, I added some low piano notes like the ones on Daylight, and I also added this alarm sound effect to add some texture and give it some more energy. Now that we got the sample done, we need some hard-hitting Memphis-style drums like the ones on First Person Shooter.
I click the trigger on a stick like a high beam.
Before we get into making those drums though, really quick, I just want to make sure that you download these 250 insane samples completely for free. All you need to do is click the first link in the description and then put your email in, and we'll email you the link to all these samples. They're insane. It's got trap, soul, R&B, and a little bit of everything, so don't miss out on that. Anyways, getting back into it, from what I hear on the First Person Shooter beat, there's a hi-hat, a Memphis snare, a kick, an 808, and an open hat. He kept it pretty simple, so that's what we're going to use on this beat. So to start, let's lay down a pretty simple hi-hat pattern with a couple subtle 16th note rolls here and there. Now to lock in the bounce that we've got going with the hi-hats, we really need to add a hard-hitting Memphis snare like the one on First Person Shooter. And I love that old DJ Paul Memphis snare. So I grabbed that, and then I also grabbed some Tay Keith style open hats, and this is what we get. If you listen to the 808 on First Person Shooter, you can tell that it's a little subtle. It's super subby and it doesn't have that much punch to it.
I clean. She got an Android, her messages is lime green. I search one name and end up seeing.
So I grabbed this super long and subby 808 sample that doesn't have much punch, and then I drew out a more complex 808 patterns with some rolls and layered it with a kick, and this is what our full drums sound like. Now, we could stop here, but one of my favorite parts on the drums on Daylight is the super distorted 808.
Internet swear that I bought the body. Take more than that to go pop somebody. Them niggas talk about everybody.
So I wanted to add a super gritty 808 like that for a switch up in our beat. And once I had that, the beat was finished. And that one's a banger for sure. We're gonna get into some more R&B style tracks like Tried Our Best, Members Only, Polar Opposites, and Drew a Picasso in a bit, but by far my favorite track on this album is 8 a.m. in Charlotte.
The money speaking for itself, I call it fortune tell. 5 top from a bitch that work at corporate sales.
That gospel choir sample really just hits you in your soul the second you hear it, and it adds such an amazing feeling to this track. So I wanted to start off our next beat by making our own gospel sample 100% from scratch. And to do this effectively and as accurate as we can, we need to listen to the original sample for the song, which was done by Mario Luciano and Polyphonic Music Library. When you listen, you can tell that the main components are a piano, bass, subtle drums, and those heavenly choir vocals. So to make my own gospel sample, I started off recording some soulful chords on my vintage upright piano. From here, to fill out the sample, I added this jazz upright bass, and I also added these jazz brush drums that are both from Logic's stock sounds, and got this. Now those sounds are pretty subtle, but adding them into the full loop really makes a difference. It makes it sound much more authentic and like it's a real sample versus just a loop that you made. But now that we got the foundation done, the best part of this sample are those vocals. So I got my pen out and wrote down some of the most generic gospel lyrics you could think of, and then I layered myself singing them a ton of different times in my room with different positions throughout my room, so it could kind of emulate the sound of a ton of different people inside of the room singing these vocals. And this is what that sounds like. I need you, Lord, oh Lord, I need you, Lord, I need more of you. But obviously, this is not going to cut it if we want it to sound like an authentic sample. So I sent my reference over to a gospel choir that I work with, and this is what they came back with. I need you, Lord, oh Lord. I need you, Lord, I need more of you. When you put that together with the music, the sample is pretty much finished. But one more thing we need to do is pitch and speed it up to get those chipmunk style soul vocals like the ones in 8 a.m. in Charlotte. And as you can hear in the 8 a.m. in Charlotte sample, it sounds super detuned and retro. So I made sure to turn the wobble up on RC20 to give it that old vintage vinyl kind of vibe. This is what the final sample sounds like. I need you. As for drums on this track, Conductor Williams went super simple on these drums with just a kick and a snare. Having this super stripped down approach to the drums does two things that make this track so amazing. One, it carves a ton of space for Drake to create unique flows and be the star of the show on this track. And two, it also gives room for the sample to breathe. And if you ask me, the sample on this one just deserves to be in the spotlight.
Yeah. Out here on the road.
So to do something similar, I grabbed an old boom bap kick and a boom bap snare and laid down this super simple pattern, which gives us our finished 8 a.m. in Charlotte type beat. Both of these beats are crazy, but For All the Dogs has a ton of slower R&B songs like Tried Our Best, Members Only, Slime You Out, just to name a few. So let's get into that kind of sound next. The dreamy sample on Tried Our Best is definitely one of my favorite moments on this album, and it caught my attention right when I first listened to it.
I swear that there's a list of places that I've been with you. I wanna go without you, just so I can know what it's like to be there without.
I love the texture on this loop and how it kind of sounds like it's an old, warped, filtered soul sample turned into some Drake R&B vibes. So to start off my own sample, I recorded some smooth and dreamy keys on my upright piano. One thing that stuck out to me on the Tried Our Best sample was the bass line. It was moving around a bunch and almost playing a melody instead of just playing a stagnant root note as the bass line. So I took some inspiration from that and put this live bass line under the piano. You can also hear that a guitar is one of the main elements in the sample for this song. So I grabbed my electric guitar and layered in some chords on top of the piano. And then I threw in this crazy Tresonator Stock Logic guitar preset and got this. Now, this sounds super solid for the foundation, but in the intro of Tried Our Best, you can hear these super smooth keys that almost sound like someone is just gliding their hand up the keyboard. So to replicate that, I transposed the whole loop to D sharp minor. And if you don't know why, it's because that's the key that has every single one of the black keys on the keyboard. The reason I did this is so I can slide my hand across all the black keys and I'm never gonna be hitting a note that's out of key. And it sounds sick when you're using it for these smooth sounding accents. So I grabbed a synth lead and started messing around with those black keys on my MIDI keyboard. Then, to fill out the sample a little bit, I played those same chords on my Prophet Rev 2 synth just to give it some more analog kind of color and flavor, and got this. Finally, to finish off our sample, I added some vocal chops, which, by the way, if you want over 1,000 R&B vocals that sound like they're straight off the new Drake album, check out Elements of R&B. It'll be the second link in the description, and you can use the code FOTD for 30% off of that. From there, the sample was pretty much finished. But if you listen to Tried Our Best, the song doesn't have any drums, and I'm dying to hear some R&B drums on this. I really love the drums on track 14 with Party Next Door, Members Only, so let's take a listen to those.
I can't wait for September, cause that means that name.
Those classic OVO Party Next Door drums never miss. So let's add some of those to our sample. First, we need to speed up our sample to a faster BPM. You can either go to 90 BPM or you can go double time to 180 BPM. And And one more thing for the sample, if you listen to members only, when the drums come in, it sounds like the sample is super filtered. So I created a B section after the intro with our sample where I filtered it like crazy using Decimort 2. The first thing I noticed with these members only drums was the fast-paced, super high-pitched hi-hat. That sounds like it's changing in velocity and gives it a really cool vibe. So I added those to our sample and got this. Next up, we've got the super slow rim shot, and the contrast between the super fast hi-hats and the slow rim shot really give the track a unique bounce and feeling. The members only drums also have a super hard hitting kick, so I did something similar and added a couple subtle kick rolls at the end. Now to really fill this beat out, we need that deep OVO style synth bass, like the one on members only. Now there's one more sound that we need to add to make the sound a little bit more like members only, and it's kind of weird. If you listen closely to the drums, you can hear that it has an 808 that sounds super similar to the Chase the Money 808.
Guys now, they gotta see a part of me in her. Yeah, red flag, blue flag, green.
This 808 is normally used for some more new wave kind of stuff, and adding it to this beat was definitely a genius move. So I grabbed one of those Rage-esque 808s and added it as kind of like an accent 808 on top of our bass, if that's even a thing. And now that we have that, our R&B for all the dog style beat is finished. If you enjoyed this video, hit that subscribe button so I can keep making more videos like this. And let me know in the comments down below what your favorite song on For All the Dogs is. That's it for me. Peace.